I was looking up some more things about the economy and the markets in general, and kind of looking for information as to where gold and silver is going, commodities, that type of stuff, especially because those are the things I'm heaviest in. Um, I do realize that a lot of people are thinking that silver is going to keep dropping. I'm not so sure because I think the opinions are getting so lopsided right now. You know, I didn't think it was going to go below 30 either, so I was wrong there. I didn't think it was going to stay below 30 more than if it dipped down maybe during intraday trading. I thought that would be about it. But I don't think it's going to drop much more. And I'm looking at this article here. It says that he's saying that he believes gold hit a bottom last week, and that it will enter a multi-month rally starting now. This article is as of December 19th, 2011, Monday, today. It goes one way to show an extreme in investor sentiment, and that's a very important common sense point. Mark Faber uses this tactic very well. He's he just showed an extreme in investor sentiment is through the commitment of traders report. Right now, large speculators are betting against the euro more than ever in the history of the euro, with the exception of 2010. That was in June 2010 when the dollar hit an index of around 90. So he's saying that the investor sentiment is so lopsided, he expects a turn to occur. And sometimes when you're looking at technicals and things, you're watching a curve going up and up and up, and sometimes well, they don't always work. I mean, quite obviously. I mean, I think one pattern that seems to work very well is a head and shoulders pattern. That's one to really pay attention to. But so you got to look at the psychology when investor sentiment is so lopsided. And there's a reason it's lopsided, because the euro doesn't look like it's very healthy right now. So a lot of people are betting against it. But I keep thinking that the powers that be are going to do everything they can to save the euro, and it's not going to fall apart that fast. So there's going to be ups and downs along the next year before maybe it will fall apart, but maybe not. Maybe not. If they go to a European-wide common bond, like in other words, in competition with U.S. Treasuries, hey, it could last a heck of a lot longer than people think, and as if they unify more strongly, it would last. So I don't think it's going to fall apart right away. There is a danger of it falling apart longer term. Yes, I know. But he's pointing out, since the market sentiment so heavily on the side of the dollar and against the euro, that he thinks it'll change. That makes sense to me. That makes sense. So, and that's bullish for the metals. There's something else here, and this is one of the things. This is the Reuters commodity index, and it includes the precious metals, the softs, the coffee, cocoa, sugar, meats, live cattle, lean hogs, industrials, copper, cotton, grains, wheat, corn, soybeans, energy, crude oil, heating oil, natural gas. It's like a whole hodgepodge of all the commodities. But generally speaking, like gold is not really a commodity per se, but silver and platinum, they're commodities too, even though they're precious metals. They're definitely industrial use commodities. But I was looking at this chart, and when we had this big crash here in 2008 with the financial crisis, almost all this upturn was QE. QE1 started in late 2008, and then you had QE2 started kicking in 2010, and it ended around June of 2011. So we're starting to see, the QE, the effects of QE fading off, and that has a hell of a lot to do with why the metals are going down. I know about the principle of fiat money and all that type of stuff, and I agree with that. I don't like the idea behind paper money and electronic money and all that either, too. I don't. But the reality is, a lot of this precious metals went in a bull market because of QE, and there is a lot of indication that QE is going to be coming up pretty soon. Um, Talking about Bernanke to unleash QE3 beast in 2012 as the CPI inflation turns tame. And consumer price indexes were flat in November after a 0.1% decline in October that stoked fears of disinflation, a four-letter word in Bernanke's lexicon, despite crude oil hovering around $100 mark, and that's due to tensions in the Middle East. Energy prices fell 1.6% in November, while food prices inched up. So the inflation's under control. So he's going to do this now. I was listening to Morgan, and he was talking about the silver guru. He was talking about silver possibly hitting $60 an ounce this year in 2012, more like towards the third quarter. Now he is very, very knowledgeable, and I think he's probably playing it a little tame because you would hold his feet to the fire on every little thing he says. I personally think silver's going to go a little higher than that. It's probably going to go into the 60s, maybe 65. And I'm thinking of how I'm going to sell off PSLV. I'll probably I think I should play it more careful. 20%, 20%, 20%, 20%. Like some at $57, $58 spot, 60, 61, 62. Maybe leave some for 65, and do it like that, because it's very difficult to actually pick an exact point, and you want to do it in pieces. As far as the price taking that long for the third quarter, I think this guy knows what he's talking about, but I almost sense that he doesn't want to say anything too high or too fast because people will hold him right to it. So I think it's going to hit a little higher than the 60, and I think it's going to be a little sooner because the QE is going to come on. And also, if there's that thing in the Middle East happens, something happens in the Middle East with the oil, a lot of times very bullish market for oil brings silver up a lot too, and it does bring gold up a lot too because of tensions, uncertainty in markets, any type of war situation or anything like that. That will bring gold up, and that's bullish for silver too. So I think what David Morgan was saying is that the guy knows what he's doing. I definitely respect his opinion a great deal, but I think he's a little afraid to say a little bit too high and a little too soon. So you might see things happen a little faster. And you know why metals really dropped in December was because things didn't go on so great in the European meeting as they expected, and also the FOMC meeting from Bernanke when it came out. They didn't like what he was saying. They were expecting that he was going to talk about more QE, another round of QE. He didn't talk about that, so that was very bearish for the metals. But I think you might see big turnaround coming in January even. I mean, it doesn't take much. One word out of this guy's mouth and everything changes, like instantly. I saw this and I thought this was pretty interesting, talking about the economy and road. A man lived by the side of the road and sold hot dogs. He was hard of hearing, so he had no radio. He had trouble with his eyes, so he had no newspapers, but he sold good hot dogs. He put up a sign on the highway telling how good they were. He stood by the side of the road and cried, "Buy hot dogs, mister, buy a hot dog," and people bought the hot dogs. He increased his meat and bun order, and he bought a bigger stove to take care of his trade. He got his son home from college to help him, but then something happened. His son said, "Father, haven't you been listening to the radio? There's a big depression on. The international situation is terrible, and the domestic situation is even worse." Whereupon the father thought, well, my son has been to college. He listens to the radio, reads the newspaper, so he ought to know. So the father cut down his bun order for the hot dogs, took down his advertising signs, no longer bothered to stand on the highway to sell hot dogs. His hot dog sales fell almost overnight. You're right, son, the father said to the boy. We most certainly are in the middle of a Great Depression. It's kind of like cute little story, but it kind of does say, a message to pretty much everybody in general. There are opportunities out there, and I think people don't take them as much. That's probably part of the problem. Um, but I think the metals are going to turn around a lot faster than people think. Um, I know right now the sentiment is very low, so it's almost like the opposite effect. But at the QE, I have to really reality behind it is QE had a lot to do with driving the metals prices up, and it does look like Bernanke's going to be doing it in the first quarter of 2012. So you might start seeing some words from that. And so as far as silver pulling back to 25 or whatever, I don't know. I mean, I don't think so myself. I really don't think so. But even this $29 silver, this has surprised me a great deal. Now the crude oil is up a lot because it's still holding pretty firm because of what's going on in the Middle East. Because I listened to this Lindsey Williams, and he's talking about the elite. When they send the crude oil up, it's going to go up like a rocket, and I can figure that. I mean, I don't need him to tell me that. There's going to be one event. It's going to happen some weird time on a weekend, or it's going to happen in the middle of the night, and crude oil is going to jump like $30 inside of no time, like that. It's going to go that fast. So I think a lot of traders know that, and they don't want to be out of the game because they don't know when it's going to happen. It's going to happen very unexpectedly, when you'll least expect it. So that's kind of keeping the crude oil prices up. But as far as the silver going down much more than that, I've been noticing that the physical silver prices don't seem to be dropping so much. I think they're adding some premiums onto it because I bought some Cougars, and this price dropped a little bit more, and the Cougars still look like they're still $33 an ounce to buy. I mean, so I thought they dropped another dollar, so I thought they'd be down at 32, but they still seem to be holding up at the same price. So if this drops down to 25, you're probably not going to be getting silver like $3 an ounce cheaper. You might be getting it like 50 cents an ounce cheaper for all I know. So I think that one other thing I want to say is I was thinking about how silver is going to hit the high. So for instance, it hits say $65, maybe even $70 this year. And then maybe it pulls back, then it builds up again. Maybe it goes all the way up to like 110 or something. But when we see the silver take off, it's probably going to be in a very small time period, just like it happened in 1979. It doubled, had a slight pullback, and then it tripled inside of 2-3 months. And that's probably what's going to happen. Maybe it'll go to, up to 75, pull back, then go up to 150, pull back a little bit, then all of a sudden it'll go to like $450 an ounce. I personally, I don't know about this $1,000 an ounce stuff. It kind of reminds me of when Goldman Sachs was pushing oil, and they were saying it was $147 a barrel, $140 a barrel, and they said it's going up to $200 a barrel. You want people to believe it's going to go up, 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 because you got to find some buyer to get the other side of the trade. So I'd be a little wary about the $1,000 an ounce or more. I mean, it could be, but I don't know. I'm probably not going to ever sell all the silver anyway. But so I'll probably be holding back. But I don't think it's going to hit that high. I don't think so, unless we have some serious inflation. So I'm a little skeptical of that, and I know the people that are way into silver do believe that, and some of them are very sincere about it. But I have a lot of doubts about it going up that high unless we get into some serious inflation. But it does look like Bernanke is not trying to cause too much inflation, because you could see what he said on the last, Federal Open Market Committee. From what he stated after that, he was very. The markets didn't like it because he wasn't giving them QE. He wasn't giving them QE. So that's what made some of the metals pull back. So I think right around the corner, we're probably going to have some more QE, though. I think it's going to come up a lot sooner. But when things start heating up again, I would be very cautious about thinking it's going to go up to some astronomical amount of money. I mean, $400 or $500 an ounce is not a low amount of money. But I think there's some people who disagree with that. They think it's going to go to 1,000 or more. I don't think so, unless they're going to screw up on the inflation. But that's my thinking anyway.